Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. The book. Oh, I have one here. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma call profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train the profound Prajnaparamita. Addressed as from that Samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. Then as one arose, Venerable Shariputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Samara Dashanara Samara Yamedi Yata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhiso Baba Ganju Sanji Gaye Devi Doji Loga Doji Mevo Doji Shewa Doji Shagi Baji Medon Beshu Doji Shede Goye So Ere Nonya Yejo Yewada Medo no be ye na ne da zon 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 yo ji na ji re ya ne na e yo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love. Let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Gani Radhayami Janan Jadi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Dyazuji Nagi Junye Jibe Zunam Ji Rala Binji Zonji Chedan Zodi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Yazuji Nagi Chunye Jibe Sunam Ji Jola Benji Zonji Ruvaryo Chedan Zodi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Yazuji Nagi Junye Jibe Sunam Ji Rala Binji Zonye Ruvaryo.
What dang as a landing, Jabata, Larry Jabot, and Makar Sugre. 죽은 점은 대비신 제법이 저와 당할 그거 주지 저와 저한이는 줄은 이시다 저는 바스 이바 담방 거지 너무 많이 대비신 바 이제가 나는 다 이바도 만다 이바로
So in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, the commentary on Atisha's lamp, there are four categories that show how the text will explain Atisha's lamp. And the first is the greatness of the teaching's author. The second is the greatness of the teaching itself. The third is the great way to listen to and explain the teachings. And then the fourth way is the way to lead students in the actual instructions. And that's the section that we've been dealing with. So, and in that section there are two sections. First, how to rely upon the teacher, that is the root of the path. And then the second is what to do once one has relied upon a teacher. So we're in the section now is having once relied upon the teacher, the stages of the path that one engages in.
다드네 다 해부제달레비 수들니 해부제달레비 수들니 제 마시 나자랑 아버지바다 달라 해불란 수무사지로 마지 나자랑 아버지바다 제부송지 라송로 타제 두비 수이제 자자제 제부송지 라제 제부송지 라제 레바제도 티비 주세 템바 사진이 나네 니바디 니바 제부송지 라주군의 TV 주센 대바지 제부송지 라주군의 TV 주센 대바들라 제부송지 더 가이바다 대다 TV 주센 사진이지 대다 TV 주센들라다 대바진달라 사진 주지지 말베 사진 주지지네 다른 가서 사진 주지 되지 산 말베 사서와 주지도 차네 주지 TV 주세도 고바니가 넌 당아도 고바가 돌려도 말고 고바로와 고바도 당아도 베이지는데 로고 주고가 이티 원래 니바들도 니바 니바 고바는 저와다 다른 것도 팀바.
So in that section that deals with how to rely upon the teacher, that is the root of the path, we finished. And then once one has relied upon the teacher, the stages of the path, the stages of the path that students train their mind in after having relied upon the teacher. And then there are two sections, an exhortation to take full advantage of the life of leisure opportunity, and then how to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity. And then we're currently in the section on how to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity. And in that section there are two categories: how to develop certain knowledge of a general presentation of the path, and the actual way to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity. So under the category of how to take full advantage, how to develop a certain knowledge of a general presentation of the path, there are two categories. One is how all scriptures are included within the paths of three types of persons. So how all the scriptures are included within the stages for beings of three capacities. And then the second is why students are led in stages using the trainings of three types of persons. So what the reason is for that. So we went over 14 points that are given within this text that show the reason that students are led in stages. So on page 133 in the English, it's why one guides students through stages, and then there's the actual reason. And then there were 14 points that we went over. So we've completed that. And after you go through the 14 points, there's now a section that's called purpose. and that's after the summary of those 14. There's a section on purpose. So that's where we are. It begins on 139 in the English, and I believe 95 in the Tibetan. 95 in the Tibetan. So we're under the purpose section. Okay, Nipa Guba. Okay. 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 So in English we'll find, and in Tibetan, we have a question and a reply. So in this section we find a question and response. So again, this is beginning on page 139 in the English text.
Lari Chenmo the Tiba Chembi Jungre, Tiba Chembi Lanshi Waters, Landra the Gangaki. And then the Tiba Chembi Lanshi and the Jigara Jibu Chungu and Di Delishi the Wakares, the Jawadi, but Kushin Marba, and the legend was answer Kushin, but that Kushin the Imbare, get the Jibun Dingi, Chukuna, Jibu Chundingi Chukuna, Jibu Chungu the Tumula, Din the Tumula. Chunding Chuku Nam, Chibi Chimbi, Hondu Hinas, Chibi Chimbi Hondu His Laurota, Chibi Chimbi Lang Juris, Hondu Hinas, and the Chibi Chimbi Lang to Chibi Chumas, and the Chibi Chimbi Langs and the Digros, and Chungu and she woman to start.
Okay, so here, beginning, it says the purpose. Question. If the teachings for persons of small and medium capacity are prerequisites for the person of great capacity, they may as well be considered stages for the path of the person of great capacity. Why use the expression stages of the path shared with the persons of small and medium capacity? So if one is a great vehicle practitioner, and that's the ultimate point, is to be a great vehicle practitioner, then what's the use of since these seem to be causes or prerequisites for the person of great capacity, these teachings of small and medium, then why not just call them stages of the path for persons of great capacity? So this is the question that's being raised in this section of if they are causes or prerequisites for the great vehicle, why not just call them stages of the path for the great vehicle?
What the Chibi Chung the Tumulan did the Tumulan, Chibi Chibi line is Shisha and Digro, Chung the Tumulan did the Tumulan's Kajini, she goes.
So what's the reason for using this word? So what's the reason for using this word common? The reason shared in this text, or common, shared in common, or shared. What is the purpose of using this word instead of just saying that it's a stages of the path for being of great capacity? Why this word shared? Why use the word common? So then the answer is going to come. There's two answers.
Tumu yulu majeba yang rani jebu chenbo ke lambe ngabi ngaje jongba dans chungu do tumu lande tumu las tene malaba yina ane shangchu sen tene lu santang din da chungu tunga yu sha ni ga yu res wote lojong ngaba gubi che ji res rwa lojong jeba la yang se ngabi ngaje jongba ngaje jong che do res rwa ngaje jong ngaje be chemi chung la jang gu ma re ling la jang gu ma so de ngaje de ka bi che go ba ji res ta dane lo ran de go ba ni ba de ka res na lo ran de ta sung la pen che wa wo sa go ba ni ba ka res che bu chung de tu la ndi da tu mo la che bi chi bi la so de che ba ina ane lo meba on peut tout sur les peintures on peut dire les peintures ne shirage shiro chibu sur les peintures chibu yores rinjite no goba chibu yores what the niba things are about pen chowa what the do the old ten wa pen chilo ne pen kan des cheberesana chilo ne jebu komani la yang non tout temps taba dene gobesa jebu komani ju pare di bi teba ta reba sanga du ji teba ni ma be ju pare di bi teba ta an reba sanga du ji teba tele ya ngo tu go gore ngo tu ha da me tenzon tu bo go gore taba tu bo go gore ngo tu ha da me tenzon tu bo go ba yesu sa chung do tu la go gore ane taba tu ba ye da ndi do tu la go gore so what she ma be pen chulo ne jebu komani la ya chundin da ngo komani la ya ngo tu da taba den ne go bes ngo tu den da 모두 돈이 총도 뭐 말বে 타바 돈이 데 리도 뭐 그베 지샤와 지샤위 간자 진디니 라야 데니지 상바 중원 땡반 겨도 먼저신세 다주바르 시비티바든 데버상아 도지 티바니라야 총도 동을 란디 동을 제발라 폐여마도 쥐가요 말레스 쥐도 먼저신스 유에데 제비셔당스 유에데 제우레스 가자 타마시나 고만네 장장 가자 타마시나네 고만네 장장 고만네 장장 삼바 고마 마치신스 오만 두유 가야 내가 주시로사 네 가자 타마시나 어부두보 셔러 주중진 바이나 아는 게 티바치밀로 로정바이 샤주센남들 장바공 니도 통을라다 총도 동글한 거 요샤 그랬어. 요샤도 집이라데 용거 말해. 집이라데 총도 동글하다. 니도 동글한 거 데벨이요. 맞아. 중고도 마송 데벨 용거 말해. 맞아. 어떻게 해 말해? 주시로사. 제야 서와 고미케와젠 라라 토모와 텐데 잠바나스 고미케와젠 다 테바 쳔비 케와젠드니 이지로 나 토모 총도 토모 란디도 토모 란 텐데 로정 제바이나 하네 제생바 하네 줄이 제차바이나 제생바 하마 제장 녀도 요데 다다 저주유사 한 제생바이나 엔여데도 페용으르스 모두 최저자반은 거야 제용으로스 아니 마지바이나 주비 제용으로스 총도 통을 로장 디도 통을 로장 집이 로장 바이나 아니 여대도 주비 제거레스 마지바나 고마 티베 초베 란레 잠바메도사 어떤 로장 제기나 ane goma che yungore, goma che tsaba tsuka ya pe yungores, goba yungores. Otu zungde, watu batu yingsa marba, tabatu jire.
Okay, so there are two purposes for differentiating three types of persons and guiding students accordingly. First, it destroys the presumption of asserting that you are a person of great capacity, despite not having developed the states of mind common to persons of small and medium capacity. So here, the first point that's made is that it destroys a pride that could arise in saying, I am a practitioner of great capacity. There is no need for me to engage in the practices of the small capacity or practices of medium capacity because I am a practitioner of great capacity. And this person doesn't have the realizations of the small and medium capacity even that are the causes for the realizations of the great capacity. So the first reasons that is given is because these two could be missing from a person's practice, and they could develop this pride in thinking that they are a great capacity practitioner. So the first reason or purpose is to combat that kind of pride that can arise. And the second, it says, it is of great benefit for those whose mind have the greatest, medium, and least capacity. How does it benefit them? Even the two persons of higher capacities must seek high status and liberation, so it is not wrong to teach students of medium and great capacities the practices that develop the attitudes of persons of small capacity and persons of medium capacity. They will develop good qualities. So here, the person, practitioner of great capacity, desires or wishes for those results that the person of medium capacity and small capacity achieve. So they like those, they desire those results. They desire to achieve rebirth into the higher realms. They want to have liberation. Their goal is complete Buddhahood, but they see those things as something desirable or something that they would want to have, is these rebirths in higher realms or liberation. So because it is a byproduct of this, it is a good thing. So they desire, these are good to them. So it says here, even the two persons of higher capacities must seek high status and liberation. So this is referring to those who are in the causal perfection vehicle, and those, the two categories of the great vehicle, the causal perfection vehicle and the resultant tantric vehicle. So even those two types of practitioners desire or like rebirth into the higher realms and desire or like liberation. So here, because they will develop good qualities, these are byproducts of the practices, there's something that they like. So this is the second purpose that's given here, and the purpose for differentiating three types of persons. Let me just make sure. So here there are different capacities of practitioners. There's Wang, Wang Du. There's those who are of dull capacity, and those who are of medium capacity, and those who have a great amount of wisdom. And it says here, all of those types of persons are benefited by these different stages. So therefore, there is a purpose in presenting all of them in the order that they are given, because of the necessity and the cause and effect relationship that they have, in dependence upon the small teachings shared in common with small and medium capacity. The teachings for beings of great capacity are created. So the great vehicle teachings of the causal perfection vehicle and the resultant tantric vehicle are created in dependence upon those, and all of the good qualities of the small and medium scope are experienced by that practitioner. Then chu kabar kason de puke kabar kason ngak okay.
Tak de khum marbe khum tada jebe chungu da tumu la andi da tumu la jebe chimi la tu ngola range ru res
Okay.
pedanga zo shentu da matu da to jeba la sa da chö da lu du go do sa da chö da lu mena shentu da matu da tu chö do sa da chö da lu la ne ane shentu da matu je ro ten na ji ju pare di chimi te ba da de sa du je te ba tu ngolo tene 사도 줄리단다 중도 통문하다 네다 통문하다 되는 적이스 때문에 저거 말이스 주선 어떤 시에도 말বে 된다고 중도 인사 말বে.
So one thing I did forget is that the students are led in these stages, and for the purpose that even the two higher practices, when we say higher practices, referring to the causal perfection vehicle and the resultant tantric vehicle, require the teachings shared in the pathways shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity. In the same way, that in order for a tree to grow or a flower to grow, it requires the earth and the water and all the lights and so forth in order for the arisal of the flower or of the tree. Likewise, in order for the arisal of the causal perfection vehicle or the resultant tantric vehicle to occur, there must be the pathways shared in common with beings in small and medium capacity as their prerequisite or as a cause for their arisal.
다들 조지에 왔더니 송바로데 수 콩가바요아르스 콩키루스나 사지 손놀요아르 존지 온주 제비슈빈도스 존지 온주 제비슈빈도 놀래 데네 제바 주메제글라 조제글라 사밀라레 손손요아르스 간주드요데 말베 안텐주도 좀 제바도 요드로 루루고 좀 아얀데 왔다 와도 수고 좀 놀요아르스 상각이 정도 어디서 나올래 집이 중고단 진짜 동원하는 집이 심이 landores 콩데 어디 논주 온시 제비 주빈돌래 너부 가서 그래 어디 버도 너부 잡으러 와 논주 온시 제비 주비 다 간단들이 다 간데 주고그 와라나 주고그 내레스 주고들라 롱고 주고도 두비 주고니 말왜 롱고 주고 사지 까드만 사지 까이나 롱고 주고 이미자 롱고 주고 이나 사지 까이미자 도비 주고 이나 라이미자 라이나 도비 주고 이미자라고 그러와 다 롱고 주고 사지 까로 들라 에나 가지스 니유스 고넬레 손로 콜로송 나자스 콜로tambo 바바 타마 나조 와라나스 대지 주고 너무 말베 들지 손자요로와 니바 존제 니시베 레바 손제 나자스 어떤데데 도와다 존제 니시베 레바 담비 주미제글라 니바 트제글라 손바 자체랑스 어떤 손데
the lam gitsen the kashe kakare the parshin shito nala the chamo nipa sumba lam gitsen gare the kashe the mam ming sen mambo yure then the tanda
담비 주미제글랑스로 주미제들레 마타바 땡고르스 마타바다 동해와다 동와다 다메바 가작 다메라바 들때바이나 안에 내중고 상바진 답가데 제비 중국라데 제비 중국라 안에 건조송을 져서 그는 먹이 주고 수진 간도 주도송 디바라 샤단제야 디바라 샤단제야라 샤단 제발라 내송고 동에는 가봐 좀 말베 동해와도 맞아 내송고 동에도 내가 주는 거 사바고 그러봐 나는 사바 들라테네 되는 주미고로 다 주미지가 되네 건조송을 장도제 되는 거 주고 최진지 디바라 샤단제 어디서 주미지가 되는 말베
okay
주미지가 되지 다 네바 조직랑스야 다 하버송 집은디도 통고라는 사람들 되네 사면은 누구 삼비 심비 추팅 되네 돈이라 다 나한테 고송자도 나한테 고송스나 조원 제버송 대바주비 통화 또비 로들 나바타비 고서 말베 나바타비고 타반도야고 주 대바마도 또비 라 제버 대바마도 또비 라 뭐 내가 말해도 나송들 나바타비 고서고 나바타비 고송 뜻을 말해 어떤 데도 통문하이 말해 돈이라 미비 셴들 하동서도 어디래 말해
okay
어디래 트레지글란스 서로와 다 소바
liberation
다 자치랑 다삼 심무도 콜리 단서도 어디 집이라더라도 집이라 안에 아디샤 존라데는 준비명아도 주고는 세지 주다 파바샤와라 존라데는 다제냐바지 군 추근가로 어텐주도에서 말베
so
what did zonji onji jebishi windole son yoares doge tapaja marbe no buzuken gitene no buzuken company son yiza marbe 는 하마이나 컴퍼니 대선 컴퍼니 나중에 가지데 촌놀로래 너버스 돈데 케용
맞아
안데 셰다탄 너버스야 위지로다
맞아
아 너무 차고는 뭐
맞아
안에 짜이지 짜 자기들 블랙이나 시대 당고르스
Lasso.
주민직 라도 말해 저 중국도 동원하는 인사로
Lasso.
다니바데 세노비 코스 다냐야 주는 냐 코아주로 너부터 bonne 양시대 당고르스 니바데 다 나타 군세 리도 동원하는 인사로
The Tambo, Lensa, Nipa, Nyaku.
가사 세노비 코스 애들로
Okay.
냐고스로 냐고
Okay.
세노비 코스 냐고제 근데 매점이 고와서도 물줄 고고 가서 물줄
Muchu.
말이야.
Sit. Okay.
다
Silver.
서버와라.
Silver water.
서버와라는 뭐는 레사무 시고라서. 아니 이제는 왜 저런 뜬 비다버자 거죠. 뜬나지 어디 example.
Okay.
보자 와
where to
진짜 딱이 해봐도.
Okay. Chidu mambo like
저는 저는 다
Dixon.
onshi jebi shibindole shib sonshas 나중에 송바이나 부자 마무리는 거.
맞아.
세계 매송도와.
맞아.
어디다 단주도 소리여들다. 베이징이 있었는데도 어떻게.
맞아.
베이징.
Okay, so where did, so now when we're in the when we're looking at where Lord Atisha got these three capacities from, if we're looking for the source material for the persons of three capacities, of small, a medium, and great capacity, we find in a sutra called the Questions of the Royal Lord of Formula. So in this sutra we find these stages. So where do we find stages that students are led in? Where does Atisha's source from? So then we find it in this sutra. So when there comes to turning of the wheel of Dharma, there are two categories: scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma and realizational turning of the wheel of Dharma. And then when we look at the scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, there are the three turnings of the wheel. If it is a scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, it is necessarily Buddha's speech. So this is a scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma. It's something that was pronounced by Lord Buddha. If it is a realizational turning of the wheel of Dharma, it is necessarily path. So here we're speaking of scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, which broken into two categories refers to the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. The first, in Varanasi, the first turning of the wheel, and then Rajagriha, and then the wheel of good differentiation. So the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. And then the second are the stages of the path given by the pronouncements. So when we're looking at scriptural pronouncements or scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma, we would find these stages that were pronounced, this second section. So that would be what we are dealing with now. And in the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, we find this questions Royal Lord of Formula. And in there, it shows, it compares the turnings of the wheel of Dharma to how, it compares, when we're speaking, this turnings of the wheel of Dharma, section of stages. So the stages, in that text, when it speaks of the stages, it compares the stages that the students are led through, that the Buddha pronounced, the stages that students are led through, to the way that a jeweler refines a jewel. So when a skilled jeweler first takes an unpolished stone from a jewel mine, it has to be refined. So there are various refining processes that have to take place. And in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, it says that the questions of the Royal Lord of Formula uses the example of a skillful jeweler gradually refining a jewel in order to illustrate the need to guide the student's mind in stages. Wary of being verbose, I have not cited it in full here. But in Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection, we find a clear explanation of this quote from the questions of the Royal Lord of Formula. So we're going to use this text as our source for the instruction. So when a jeweler first gets an unpolished jewel from a jewel mine, it has to be refined. First it has to be washed very carefully. Hold on one second. Washed very carefully with a salt water solution similar to water from the ocean, and then wiped with a hair cloth. And then, so that's compared to the teachings that are shared in common with beings of small capacity. Or if we look at the classification that we find in the general meaning of perfection that comes from the sutra, it's called the causal ripening path. So in that, we could call it the causal ripening path, but that is the same as the pathway shared in common with beings of small capacity, or the pathways to the higher realm. So this would be the causal ripening path. And in that sutra, it says that the Buddha understands the impure nature of sentient beings, and then he tries to calm or quiet down their joy they have with cyclic existence by teaching, by using a disquieting discourse, which is a discourse on suffering, selflessness, impermanence, and impurity. So the Buddha first tries to get someone who finds joy in cyclic existence to change his or her mind through this type of discourse. And this is compared to washing, the way a jeweler would wash the jewel at the first level of cleaning with a salt water solution and then clean it with a hair cloth. Secondly, then the next level, which is called different things. If we're looking at it according to the stages in the sutra, it's called the liberation pathway, or the pathway which unbinds someone. If we compare it, we would say it's common to the teachings, pathways shared in common with beings of medium capacity, or the lesser vehicle pathway. So here, this second category, we would say is a pathway which leads to liberation. And in the Questions of the Royal King, it says that the Tathagata's discourse at this point is on emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So on the lack of true establishment of cause, and lack of true establishment of result. So the Buddha teaches the three highest higher trainings so that the practitioner then develops renunciation and does so by discourse on signlessness, emptiness, and wishlessness. So this is the next level that the Tathagata trains the student. And then in the Questions of the Royal Lord formula, this is compared to the second stage that the jeweler uses, where he or she takes a fish water solution and washes the stone with a fish water solution and then wipes it clean. So this is the second refining process that is compared to the second stage, which can be called the stage of path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, or liberation pathways, or lesser vehicle pathways. And then the last is the stages of the path for beings of great capacity, or Jachewa, the great ocean, or the great vast, the Jachewa, Okay, so the vast ocean. So I was correct. The vast ocean of paths. Yeah, vast ocean of path. The vast ocean path, which is also the pathway of being of great capacity, or the pathway of the great vehicle, or the bodhisattva yana. These are all the synonymous. And here it says that the Tathagata gives the discourse to sentient beings on the cultivation of the union of method and wisdom at that point. And that is in the sutra is compared to the final refining of the jewel that the jeweler uses using a silver water solution. I read somewhere else quicksilver, but here it says silver water, a solution of silver water and a very soft cloth. So washing it with silver water and then wiping it with a very, very soft cloth. And then this is compared to the stages of the path for beings of great capacity, or the vast ocean pathway, as it's called in the sutra. So here we find this common locus. We find this common stages that we find in the sutra, as well as in Atisha's lamp. So we're proving Atisha's lamp has source material where the students are led in stages, and it's actually a category of the scriptural turning of the wheel of Dharma.
Rinpa Songji Naja Shibala Niji, Shiji Jindu Goba Di Tuen Shibaji. Ta Shiji Jindu Goba Songji Shibindu Shosana Do Teles, Do the Redua, what to go to Rigibo Datates, Rigibo Datates, Bana Nambu Jung Nambu Ken Kebe, Nambu Jung Tsu Lebar Sheba, De Nambu. Number Muchilane, Yonsu Madabi Numbo, Muchilande, Lanta Chu Bande, Trai Yonsu, Jon Shetos, what did Rojula Shuda?
Okay, so in this, the general meaning of perfection, we find it begins with. So it says Nipa Zhongjel. So here it's going to quote a sutra, and the sutra that's going to be quoted, or the source of the material that's about to be presented on the three stages, comes from the questions of the Royal Lord of Formula. So here it says the three stages that are going to be presented come from here, and then there are going to be two sections that are dealt with. First is the sutra source itself, so that there must be a source. It says Dogupa, so there must be a source. So it's going to quote basically the source. It's going to quote the questions of the Royal Lord of Formula. And then the second point is explaining the meaning of the sutra. So what that quote actually means. So Panchen Son Andrapa first quotes the sutra, because there must have the source, there must have the sutra, and then explains it. So it says that those two things are going to happen. And then first, we're going to quote, we're going to look at the need to look at the sutra itself. So then, it begins just quoting it directly. And it says, "O child of good lineage," or son or daughter of, it says child, but it's the same as in the English. The Tibetan is the same as you find. Let me see, actually. Rijipu. It says, "O son," actually, "O son of noble family." O son of noble family, a jeweler, for instance, takes an unpolished jewel from a jewel mine, takes an unpolished stone. A skilled scholar jeweler retrieves an unpolished stone from a jewel mine, and then begins the refining process. He first uses a salt water solution and wipes it clean with a hair cloth. But he or she doesn't just stop at that. He wishes to purify it further. The Kabakas, the Chimche logo. Okay, so Rinpoche said we stopped at the salt water solution and hair cloth. So here, this is the stages of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity section. So he wipes it clean with uses a salt water, pours a salt water solution over it and wipes it clean with a hair cloth.
That deso wara kadul that ju meje lang karse madaba song gore dama ba song gore matang song what the dama ba dama rabar zed marba what in the kadul ju meje lang ju bichung da tumo lang to one day dengo is.
So here the salt water that the washing that here it's saying washing of the stone. The washing is here, washing it by disquieting discourse on impermanent suffering, selflessness, and unpleasantness. And this is the coarse forms of these initially. And what I forgot from before, that the pathways for beings of small capacity included within this are going for refuge to the three jewels, ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and acknowledging downfalls. So I forgot this from the previous translation. It was included in the pathways for small capacity, so I wanted to include that. So here, here Rinpoche is speaking of the discourse of the coarse, impermanent suffering, selflessness, and unpleasantness.
That that's somebody doing my is indeed not more long marbe. That's on je and the numbers of Sayo Martin, that numbers of waters. That's on je somebody doing my he would say no be call upon the Nyai quality marbe. Nobody say no be call bon and the page page license also. Log put the marbe. The Suki black sheep waters. Sheep.
Oh, okay.
Page like page is not that low sheep. This in the language. Page like page and a log put the pay lot.
Oh, okay.
Page like is na page blanket marbe.
Merino.
Nyakun bon and a peg does blanket she waters. Jean Achet was said, did not moon land was marbe. Did not moon. Did not moon like us not a good not a good let marbe. Taga the Nanu Sambis in 15 town and then 20 maybe not a good one. What to Sulatin and Tabatu is Taba Jibin Jean the Tumolan is what they think women. The Burma and Alteja.
Okay. Din Tumolo. Okay. So then it says the skilled jeweler is not satisfied with this. There's still impurities in the stone. So then it says the skilled jeweler takes a fish a solution, and this is in the commentary. It speaks of it being fish water. So it takes a strong solution, fish water solution. And then rubs it with wool. Here it says a sheep baby. So the wool. What rubs it with wool and the rugu shin.
Sheep blanket.
De dang shin. Gary.
She's in this wash this.
Okay, so it rubs it. Okay, so there's all. I'm going off of other translations that there. Anyway, it's a long. So it then takes a sheep blanket and rubs that stone with it. So it takes this solution. So this is an example that is referring to the pathways for beings of medium capacity, the liberation pathways. Then
that's on somebody doing my that should be long. Tazanji Tanda Nabuzo Sayo Maris, Tazanji Somandoa Maiti, Udo, Penchembi Kual Bones, Penchembi Kuas Language Marbe, Udl Peching Logos. Penchembi Kuala Bones, Resami Tanga to the Rendanami, and the she was. I don't could without charm with that. No, without any that.
And then it says, he doesn't then he doesn't cease his efforts with just this. He then uses a silver solution that is poured over it, and then a soft cloth, a very soft cloth to wipe it. and this is compared to the teachings for pathways for beings of great capacity.
어제티 우도 다 송바다 다 집치미랑 데 뻔데레도 더장지 좀도 와야 마이테 티 우도 펜침비 코알라 보네스 펜침비 코알라 보네 레소암 선데람 마른데 나브레 레소암도 시고아르스 노수 중화시도스 안나비 답 찬로다 말베 찬노 두어스 뻔데 나제는 아주 가자다 이지 셰바데 이지 너브나무레스 대어드는 란차당 란사가 저 담보 마다바다 도경와다 동와다 내뉴고 상바제야게 집에 총우도 동원한 나두스 때 안에 도서라 때는 내뉴고 상바제 안에 먹이주고 추진 가도 주도송 디발샤 나제 어디 인사마르베테 총우도 동원하도 어디 된 거라서
Leso.
다 뒤우들 세너비 고알라 보내더니 베지 라이스 베스나 시 라와스나 시 블랙드 말베 어디 블랙드인데 시바이나 쿠비단도 뒤우동은 줄본 문줄본에 레사먼도 시바이나 안나봉은 비다비 차는 거죠 bedena example senja amado sende an jibu chungu to tumola tambo chungu to tumola tenne to tumola an jibu chibilal te ures what is it marbe jeba tambi ju bhejigla ni bi chujigla sombe jachi la sa do de tambo chungu to tumola ni bandi to tumola sombe jibu chibilal de marbe tambi ju bhejigla chungu to tumola niba dreje landi to tomola somba jache la chibichimi la manbe what the landle chibichini somba to what the ronje ne somba de das konderes no yodo tanto to kana de.
So if we're looking for the source of Atisha's stages that he presents in the Lamb for the Path to Enlightenment, we find it in the sutra, and specifically the questions of King Dharanishvara Sutra. In specific, what are we calling it here? Questions of the Royal Lord of Formula Sutra. So, and in this case, we find the explanation of the jeweler refining a stone. And in the mental consciousness, when we get, so let me just finish. I forgot to read one thing. I have to finish reading something here. And then, no, I finished that. Then wipes it with the great herb, the silver water. No, I finished the silver water. And then, so here, the jewel here is the mental consciousness itself. The mental consciousness itself is like a wish-fulfilling jewel that can be refined. So initially, one refines one's wish-fulfilling jewel, which is his or her mind, by listening to the discourses on suffering, selflessness, impermanence, and impurity. And then, as a result of that, then this is the initial stages, which are the stages of the path for beings of small capacity, or the causal, are the Ju-min, the ripening of our continuum, or the stages of the path for beings of small capacity. So this initial process of our cleansing of our mind would be those stages of the path, and that's compared to washing the jewel with a salt water solution and rubbing it with a hair cloth. The next, and these are the pathways which lead to the higher realms. So this would be called the ripening of our pathways to ripen the continuum, literally. Pathways to ripen the continuum, or pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity. And here we speak of being taught selflessness, suffering, unpleasantness, and impermanence. The next level are the pathways that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity, or also called the liberation pathways. So here, our mind is cleansed at this next level or next stage, in the same way that a jeweler cleans a stone utilizing a fish water solution and then wiping it with a wool, and then refining it a little more. So at this stage, the teachings that are shared in common, pathways shared in common with beings of medium capacity, or pathways which lead to liberation pathways. And then the next example that's given is the jeweler doing the final refining of a jewel, where he or she uses a silver water solution and then rubs it with a very soft cloth to make sure that it's completely pure. And this is compared to the mind being refined by the stages of the path for beings of great capacity, or the vast ocean pathways. These are all synonymous. Vast ocean pathways, pathways for beings of great capacity, great vehicle pathways, two higher pathways. All of these are synonymous, and this is compared to that jeweler. So this example of the jeweler is given because the mind is being compared to a jewel. The mind is like a wish-fulfilling jewel that can be refined more and more and more by these practices in an order. Detsko Rinpoche, the Rijipu Dijindu.
Da Rijipu Dijindu sa, Rijipu Dijindu sa, Lensa di put marbe. Rijipu Dijindu, Dijin Sheba Yans, Dijin Sheba Tatanga Tarwa. Dijishibaya Yonsu Madabi, Sijin Kanchene, Yonsu Madabasana, Yumobata Si Diva Madabi, Sijin Kansa, which is really good, Sanji, Sajan Vesava, Tamana Lubo, Sijin Tanji, Sanji Rig Chaguars, Read Shosana, Ijishebatan, Isheba Demo Maruba Jas, Ijisheba the Isheba Demo Maruba, Sanji Kanre, Sanji Riris. Then you did not, she did tire matters. You want to Madabi. Sentient content is usually Chene, Tetaji, never Karasondu, Mataba Sondu, Tonga Sondu, then doing a puppy demo, doing the Nabashi Marbe, Mata, doing a Tonga Dame. What did you do? That content, then doing a puppy demo, and then the Kunu puppy demos, Jebuchungu, the Tonga Koso, doing the Kunu Dama Rabat Janu.
Okay.
Kazaka Dama Rabat and the Ro, Ring goes to Tamu. So then
it says, the one thus gone understands the impure Buddha nature of all sentient beings. So here, impure and Buddha nature are put together, but there is an impure Buddha nature. So that, just as a translator's note to those words, impure is referring to sentient beings having not removed the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. So a sentient being is one who has not removed those things. So here, this word impure, nature of sentient, understand, it says here, the one thus gone knows or understands the impure sentient beings. It should say impure sentient beings' nature. Understands impure sentient beings' nature. The impure sentient beings' nature is Buddha nature. So the nature, and the reason for this is because of the mental consciousness. The mental consciousness is, if we look at how we define mind, mind is that which is in the nature of clear light and unstained. So here, where it says, the one thus gone understands impure sentient beings' nature, refers to that Buddha nature or Buddha potential. And where is that? It's the mental consciousness and the lack of true establishment of that mental consciousness that is the Buddha potential or Buddha nature. So here, where it says the Buddha ascertains the impure sentient being's nature. It means that these sentient beings are impure because they have obstructions to omniscience and afflictions and so forth, but also have Buddha potential or Buddha nature. And it says then that he causes those sentient beings who find the joy in cyclic existence to rethink it or quiet this kind of joy by a disquieting discourse. And that disquieting discourse is a discourse on the first 4 aspects of the Four Noble Truths. If translators note, the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, the first 4 attributes of the Four Noble Truths are suffering, impermanent suffering, selflessness, and emptiness. Here in the text it's speaking of impurity. It says, in the text it says impermanent suffering, selflessness, and impurity. I asked Rinpoche at the break, and he said that's just referring to emptiness in that case. And then Rinpoche gave me a whole bunch of reasons that I didn't understand. So I apologize, I can't go further. But I will look further into this. So here this is speaking of the first 4 attributes of the Four Noble Truths. So this particular part, where it speaks of first the one thus gone ripens the sentient being's mind in this way. This is speaking of the teachings that are shared in common, the pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity, and that first example given of the jeweler refining the jewel with the salt water solution and then wiping it clean with a hair cloth. So this first section is dealing with the stage of the path for beings of small capacity, or the ripening the pathways which ripen the continuum. So here, at this first level, when we're looking at the Four Noble Truths and we're looking at suffering and the origin of suffering, at the small scope level, this is the coarse form of the suffering and its origin. And then when we get to the pathways shared in common with beings of medium capacity, or also they're called the profound pathways, or the liberation pathways, there are all these synonyms in this text, then this becomes the subtle form of suffering and the origin. So the small pathways shared in common with beings of small capacity have the coarse form of the truth of suffering and origin. So these are coarse attributes of the first truth: suffering, impermanence, selflessness, and emptiness. And then once we get to the medium pathway, we're dealing with the subtle forms of those things, and the subtle truth of suffering and truth of origin. Tamche Lhasa.
Oh, yeah. The Geshe Lharampa do banze do se te chung do tung la je bande ten go sarwa. The zang ji taba tu tu mares la. The zang ji taba tu tu mares. The zang ji Geshe Lharampa do ya mai des. And taba tu wal kar ten go na na ba tabe go. Mo de ba tu tu ju de ba tu tu de ba de ba tu je tu se ngol de ba tu tu de ma du ba ro ka shi ten ju mai bi chung ga ye ba mai no ti shi tu ba mai bi chung ga ju tu na ten de mi chao de ma du bi chao and mo kare ngai mo ina de ma du ba re ngai ju de ma du ba re ngai de ba du ba re ju de mo so de ma du tu lo te tabi la ni do tu mo la in sa mar ba Tiwoto Tombani does one Tombani not the Mamadubal, Tombani Lagreta, Nakar, Kamba de Mamaduba, the Kajan Cheo Maro.
Less so.
Some of them Madubasana, Joe.
Less so.
Ngai ju de Maduba.
Less so.
Kamba members and Debo de Maduba.
Less so.
What the Kangalja, Jundi Wonson Jai, Shaji Lesmon Jane, not a Kusunja, Moja, and not the June Jabo. Most Jane, not a good Naba Tabi Gores. And then as you come and do go to Gorilla, then Juzuna, come and all Leora, the Gongina, Tabi Tabal Dores, Tabi Gores, Liberation Dorba.
Less so.
What they go to the Labaje and Liberation, they go to Yavaina, Tingan did not Labata Hatun and Zudezruta, Labason in Samarba. 어딘지도 동물한 텐디서
The one that's gone does not cease his efforts here. So previously the antidote was those four teachings, and now it says it does not cease here. He then tries to ripen them through to the stage of liberation. So here it says to understand that he does so by getting them to understand the discourse on emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So here the Tathagata, this is referring to the stages of the path for beings of medium capacity, that cleaning with the fish water and the wool cloth example of the jewel refining. So here this is the Tathagata teaching. Emptiness is referring to lack of true establishment. So when we speak of the subject emptiness, we can apply it to the I. I am not truly established. In Nagarjuna's Mulya Madhyamika Karika, it states that since there is no phenomenon that does not dependently originate, there is no phenomenon that is not empty. So because everything dependently originates, everything is empty. So in that statement, that's made, this first part, emptiness, is referring to I am not truly established, I am empty. This house is not truly established, this house is empty. When it speaks of signlessness, it's speaking of the cause. My cause is not truly established. So signlessness is the lack of true establishment of cause, and wishlessness is speaking to result. My result is not truly established. My effect is not truly established. So the cause not truly established is signlessness. I am not truly established is emptiness, and my result not being truly established is wishlessness. And this is implicitly referring to the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, those liberation pathways. And here, those pathways specifically are the higher trainings, the ethics of renunciation, and then concentration and wisdom, and specifically a union of calm abiding and special insight that utilizes as its object of observation emptiness. So here, this is speaking of the pathway which leads to liberation.
So in the
where it says there's and here it's no sign, no wish, and then they've translated as no signlessness, wishlessness. But in the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge, it says there's no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue. It could be translated, the way it is in the Tibetan is precisely that way. There is emptiness, no sign, no wish. So you can translate it that way as well, and it means the same thing as it does in the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge.
No eye causes, no eye ete.
There is no I, there's no cause of I, there's no effect of I. So there's no I is emptiness, there's no cause of I is signlessness, and no effect of I is wishlessness. So this is the door, I'm sorry, Rinpoche, this is the door into liberation. So by meditating upon the medium stages of the path, one is able to achieve liberation. So that's one thing I forgot from before, is that's the door into liberation. So the I am empty, I have no sign is my no cause, and I have no wish is no effect. So in the stage of the path for a small capacity, there's a coarse understanding of the truth of suffering and origin. The truth of suffering referring to the lower realms of cyclic existence, and origin referring to the propelling karma that gives rise to the experience of the lower realms of suffering. The more subtle understanding of the truth of suffering and origin at the medium scope is that even there is suffering in the higher realms of cyclic existence, and one wishes to be free from or liberated from even those higher realms of cyclic existence. So the origin then becomes the propelling karma that gives rise to the experience of even the higher realms as well, the karma and the afflictions.
Oh,
action agent and object. Less
and also draw in the Sagalanga, Drokin Kaza, draw, the soon never to be Tuala, not a Guzunja Yorda. Come on, draw in and Drosagalanga Euro, Drokin Kaza Euro, draw Euro. What the soon never to be Tuala, not a Guzunja Yorda.
And then here the pure lack of true establishment of the action agent and the object. So the action, if we're looking at an example of action agent and object, walking down the street, the agent is the walker, the action is the walking, and the object is the Kambajana. Lanka, the object is the road, the Kamba, the... So there's a road, there's a goer. And then how do we go? We go by walking with our feet. So there are all of these three complete these are called the three spheres of action, agent, and object. So the purification of the three spheres of action, agent, and object become the great scope. So when we look at the lack of true establishment of, for instance, eating, we're eating something, there's an eater and there's an act of eating. So there's something we're eating, there's an eating that's going on, and an eater. And all of these three have lack of true establishment. If we look at it in this way, then we can expand this thinking. Looking at the lack of true establishment of the eating and what was eaten and the eater and so forth.
Tazanji Zamandua Maiti, would Shema Dubi Kulutan, Kosun Yonsu Tabi, Tangis, Kosun Yonsu Tabi, Tangis, Kosun Yonsu Tabi, Tangi, Rajin Hatuji, Junji, Singin Tada, Dijinji Villa Jubanzetos, Kosun Yonsu Tabi, Tangi, Rajin Hatu Junji, Singin Tada, Dak Nadeshan Chuchu, the Sanji, Juparishima Jodan, what to Sultan. And the Sanjay suit soon was Adisha Jonathan, Dajana Jun Sanchi Jutan, Papa Shola Jonathan, Dajana, what the Gunde Judin, somebody better.
And then it says, then it leads the sentient beings to the Buddha land through the discourse on the cultivation of the union of method and wisdom, and then the complete purification of the three spheres. So the complete purification of this. So here, cultivation of the union of method and wisdom is speaking of initially the causal causes for this Buddhahood and the necessity of achieving this method union of method and wisdom, and arriving at bodhicitta by way of the two practices. One passed down from Lord Atisha, the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and the second by Master Shantideva, called equalizing and exchanging self with others practice. So here the Tathagata then leads the practitioner through the great vehicle stages, through this union of method and wisdom, and specifically by teaching bodhicitta and its causes.
Nipa ne du dun she du des peche kola shi sun do du dun da she la bu she da res jin de she da jaw mu dus peche kola shi lensa she ba jasa res lensal bon de se jasal go jasa so to mar so jasal go waris se no bi ko ne nya ko dans nya bo nya tu je ko de res peche bi ko se da ngu chu wo tel ma du je.
So this next part goes over the details of what exactly is meant by these liquids that are in the quote. So the second section that explains it makes it very easy to understand that this first liquid is referring to salt water, like the ocean salt water, and then the second being fish water and so forth. So it makes it easy to understand the meanings of the sutra in this second section.
Teaching Lanju, then you are looking Tilante, then we use Domin teaching Landu can Yoroa, Domin Timel Marbaji, Domin teaching Landu can get Tombi Jubijigalan, Trejigalan, and then Jachi Lansunga, then we use Domin Timel shoot, then you are looking Nika Tangus and Dutki. Nika Tanguas. So you are that. The old daughter, Mamashim go, what the nation and it.
So here it's necessary to rely upon both of these pathways. We can't just say that we're just a great vehicle practitioner. We have to rely upon all of the small and medium capacities, the pathways for the lesser vehicle practitioners. So that this is the meaning behind this, that one has to generate these various pathways that lead to this great vehicle pathway. The great Chanchu Sen Maji Gong Doni Dure, on do Ji Chanchu Sen Jie, Shu Doni Dures, Oma Jeng London de Ducature. Yanda Jesu Mondante, Don Nabangajan, Tang and Tinijin, Hijikun Genesos, one de Tom Doni Do, then Chanchu Sen Jules Jeres, Kom Nobu Yinzang, and Sanji Sen Yodame, Sanji Yoba, Sanji Gongina, Sanji Yodame. Time Marubato, Gongo Maruta, the Time Jola Tony to Tony Hell to Gores, one to the Tombo Shanju San Jules, Tony Show to Res, Oma Hotel, Tojoka Old Water, not the Kangashi Gumudu. So, and then it speaks of that there are two ways that one can enter the path. There are bodhisattvas of sharp capacity, and then there are bodhisattvas of dull capacity. Those bodhisattvas of sharp capacity are bodhisattvas that initially enter the path already having realized emptiness, and then those are of sharp capacity. And then there are those of dull capacity that first realize the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and then later on realize emptiness. So we won't be able to go over it in complete detail, but in the ornament, Umachen, Shewal. In the ornament, the Kabiyari, in the ornament for the Mahayana. In the ornament for the Mahayana Sutras, we find this quote that talks about the
two.
So we're going to go back to the Lamrim Chenmo. Hold on 1 second.
Taking us what to Marba. Range take good badness, Zonje also Jabi Shubales, what could dance at the what Gangana, Rosie.
So we are on page 140 in the English.
Range take good badness, Zonje also Jabi Shubale. The
140 in the English. Lodru
Tamara, that Tagendo de Lorinci took over the Zonjo Onshu Jabi Shuba Les.
Okay.
Number can keep, number Rinci Jean you. Pedro de Janet, Kate you are, son you are, Tananga Sudan you that Kate res, then those Java in a Simons Tone. Martisos, in the Shijava in a Pasha Momorin Dos, Jimes, Tanangazo, Madiba Shidun address. What the law was.
So it says the questions of the Royal Lord of Formula uses the example of a skillful jeweler gradually refining a jewel in order to illustrate the need to guide the student's mind in stages. Wary of being verbose, I have not cited it in full here. So in the Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection, we find the bigger explanation of that. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying he's not going to explain it in here because it requires a lot of text and explanation, but we just went over it using Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection.
Chibi large range take over the Gomalodu Gombares, Ludu Jijan, Tomungaba Tuchu, Shenangaba Leban, Shenangaba Lenjongwa. Kanshing Nobat Motu Nene, Range, Naba Leban was what again. Chungunde the Chuchibus, what they name was Chibares. Tomungaba Tuchu, Montu Marango Lantango. Chenengaba Leba once at the Nele de Tat, Tabatan Tajaba Nigan, Tombundina Tomoche, and Naba to Tune, Rinji, Naba Leba once. Tangele de la Tabatan Tajaba Nimar, Tabatuji Land, Nina Tomula, Tajaba Tuji Land, Chibichi Land. What the Jiba is that Chungundi the Church of Chibusun, Ludu the Jibare, Sanje the Jibaris. What is the matter?
The protector Nagarjuna also said to guide students in stages through the paths of high status and certain goodness. Initially, there are teachings on high status, then come the teachings on certain goodness. For having obtained high status, you gradually reach certain goodness. So, here, this is showing that Master Nagarjuna also shows the stages of the path. As Lord Atisha stated, understand there are persons of three capacities, small, middling, and great. Here, Nagarjuna is speaking of high status and certain goodness. High status referring to the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, certain goodness having two categories, liberation and complete Buddhahood, or liberation and then omniscience, and this being the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity and teachings for beings of great capacity. So it's very similar in that the stages are presented here as well.
Papa told me, Papa told me, Jans, Yan Shantu Sambane, Rinji Giyu, Shu Yan Taba Ruba Shai Sher, Sentient Shebi, Sherogen Nalas, Sentient Shebi Sherogen Nala, Toman Lai Chutun Ba Shejin, Lai Damba, Lai Dangatan, Ti Jesu. Jesu Temba, Jesu Juba Shetos, Teda Sheron Dindan, Nidan Temba, Juba Tune, Tenen Dindan Dangatan, Jesu Tembi, 네 제수 요가 셰도 린드렌도와 다다 셰로 자 전부 다 내가 또네 최소한 된지 당하다 제수 된바 차와 제수 요가 셰데네 디 세제나라 된셔바 고리진도 매번 예노 셰송부터 때 도매의 지발에서 도매 지발에서 다 도매 어디 담보 도매지 양상주 선반나는 린지 게슈 양다바 다 세제 강가 센데랑 유에서와 집이 라줄 저롱레 리 라줄 저롱레 안 집이 라줄 저롱로와 안 집이 종을 나들 네 줄지야 가는 거는 린지 게슈 루바샤이셔 세제 시비 셔로 제나라 셔로 총아도 저 총의로다
맞아.
셔로 제나라 토마 하이 추던 버시진스 렐 하복 추던 거스 마다 동에 동다음에 라바도 된 거이저로다
맞아.
하이 추되네 하이 당하다 제수 때바 제수 요시도스 어디 총도 도몰안 된거도
맞아.
what 바지 주셨나라
Furthermore, bodhisattvas cause their disciples to accomplish the virtuous factor of enlightenment correctly in stages. In order to do this, they initially give easy teachings to beings of childlike wisdom, having them practice easy instructions and explications. When they recognize that these beings have become endowed with average, so this is the small scope, with average wisdom, they have them practice average teachings and instructions and average explanations, the medium scope. When they recognize that these beings become endowed with extensive wisdom, they have them practice profound teachings and instructions and subtle explications. This is the graduated flow of activities for the welfare of these living beings, great scope. So here initially it says, bodhisattvas cause, because sentient beings have mind, which is in the nature of clear light and unsullied, all of these things are possible. So all of these potentialities exist, or all of these are potentials. So initially, the bodhisattva, the teacher, causes their student to accomplish the first stage, or causes their disciple to realize the first stage by giving very easy teachings, because they have very little amount of wisdom. And because there's such a small amount of wisdom, it's necessary to give very easy teachings. So initially, very easy teachings are given because there's very little wisdom. So this is the first stage, and this is compared to the teachings for beings of small capacity.
다 싫어 중앙도 싫어 때야 쳐버려서나 대다 싫어 린다 댐버 줘봐 또네 싫어 때야 린다 튜버게 싫어야 패소나 안도 고줄 린다 통을 땡고레스 또네 최대바 린다 당하다 린기 당하다 아도노 린다 당하다 제수 댐바 제수 조바시도 네 제분들도 통로랑 땡고르스 말이야 나다 고송도 두세이로 나다 고송제 나라바송도 땡고레스 제부 총어디야 호시런 린즈레소나 린도 통로랑 땡고르스 어떤 소리에서 말이야
So it says initially they give these easy teachings, having them practice easy instructions and explications. So this is the small capacity. Then as their wisdom increases a little more, then we move on to the teachings for beings of medium capacity. And it says when they recognize that these beings have become endowed with average wisdom, they have them practice average teachings and instructions and average explications. So here, as the wisdom increases, then the teachings for beings of medium capacity are given, and the understandings of the lack of true establishment of action agent and object and so forth. So then these are given, or the emptiness, signlessness, wishlessness, these are given. Very similar to going to school. You go to first grade, and then your wisdom increases a little, then you move on to the second grade, and your wisdom increases a little, and then you move on to the third grade.
Tada Shiro Chenmo the Temba Chunas, that did not to Lantene, and Kuzi Shiro Yapine, Shiro Chenmo Chasasuna, and Chibichibi Lanten waters. Tada Shiro Chenmo the Temba Chuba, Tune, Chusamo, Tunshi, Dangata, Jesu Temba, Chawa, Shidun Juba Shidos, that Tiba Chembi Lantan Jebu Temple on the shade. Then Sejin Nala, Tunshi Kurijin to Beba Yinos, what the Sangak water and
When they recognize that these beings have become endowed with extensive wisdom, so when they realize that these sentient beings have become much more intelligent, their wisdom is higher, then they give them the practice profound teachings and instructions and subtle explications. So speaking of the teachings for beings of great capacity. This is the graduated flow of activity for the welfare of these living beings. So this is a Sangha's explanation of stages that is concordant with others.
Tatene Ayandewa, Jijaba, Ayandewa Jibaris, Tenajison, Chongin, the Jibuson, Shivas, and Tendrabo, and Ayandewa Jibaris, Ayande Sheba Dibu Drummers. Modo Pashinji TV Sambala Janes, Modo Pashin TV Sambala Jane, Tene Hala Jubi Tu Rinjindo Goba Drushin, T. Don't do this, a T. Don't. Ayandoa Takur Kashugarata, Ayandoa Tak Matul Jevas Marbe, Duce, Conshirag Mumulu Sig to. Rebot Halebi Pentatagin Samar with that. Tell it Tom Passion to be on Jean Walton and Han Jugores, Tag Drew down the Drugores. Should you German Paru to Shimbi TV Samba Jane, Tene, Hala Jubi, Ringing to Guba Drushinsa, Germajet and Rabun Tama, what things are. Tea don't do there. Sentient legend, that Shiro Chua. Tachibu Chongo to Zero, Tombi Legend Nam, Tambi Jola Juba Las, turn the Zubi Sanji, Gaging Matabusonsa, that Chongo to Tumula, Dinda Tumula, Chimilan to Kenda Dovres, Tombo Chungulandu, then the Kenda Niva 10 or the Gaging Matabuson, Kendal Pajanua.
Bless her.
Rematabuson Tanga to Jabon de Redo. She dance, Jabayan, so now Meba Tambudu, Patu Dan Dubadan, Tamataji Kunduba, Kanji Tene, Keba is judging us down there to what they remember. So now Meba Tambudu said, Chunga Tunga Nadim, but so now Meba Tambudu. Chabichunga to the Tambutat, the Papi Deba, the Kunu Papi Debos, Rabat to Carnage, Mugu to the Zoom. Kandu Jedusu, Kunjusula Chausundo, Dibal Shadajea. Then doing a papi, Mata doing a Tundament to go in Samarbe. So now me about Tombudu. But Dan do was some data. More never tribute to one, more never tribute to one, Jabit never tribute to one, Jit never tribute to one, what to Jana Jurota, what the 20 Tamat in Samarbe. Tamatashi Kundubaso, Tamatashi Kundubata, Chimilan Jiro. Kangi, Shade, Keba, Shebaina, with Kebares. That Timeg, not a Guzula, then Timel Hala, then you did not do a Pontu, Pacha Pontu, Chinta Pejin, what to get Sharibadan, Sanji Dajumba Jibare, Mwashi Jibare. Sanji Chemana goes to Chenmo, Baja to Montumano, Baja Monjetele, don't need to be shared out down, Shantu Saint and Shiru to Song. What does one is a man? Tamatashi Kunduba, Kajitan Keba is.
Okay. So now we're going to quote Aryadeva. Aryadeva was a great Nalanda master who was considered one of, sometimes called Nagarjuna's son, a spiritual son. And it was a great scholar of the Madhyamaka. It says, Aryadeva's lamp, which is a compendium of deeds, describes how you first train in the thought of the perfection vehicle and then enter the mantra vehicle. It establishes that you must do so in stages. It then summarizes this point as follows. The method by which beings who are beginners, so those who are just engaging in the path, engage in the ultimate purpose was said to by the perfect Buddha to be like the steps of a staircase. So those who are beginners begin with the stage of the path for beings of small capacity, and then the next stair is the stage of the path for beings of medium capacity, then the next stair for beings of great capacity. And then it goes on to quote Aryadeva's 400 verses again, and it says that the order of the path is definite. Initially, you stop the non-meritorious. In the middle, you stop the misconception of self. Finally, you put an end to all bad views. One who knows this is an adept. So here, initially, you stop the non-meritorious. This is referring to the teachings for beings of small capacity. First one understands the Four Noble Truths, the first truth of the Four Noble Truths in a very coarse way, the truth of suffering and the truth of origin. And then he or she engages in the practices of going for refuge to the three jewels and engaging in the ethics, which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and then acknowledges one's downfall. So one has a coarse understanding of suffering, being that of cyclic of the lower realms, and of origin, that being that which creates the experience of the lower realms. So one engages in these practices just mentioned at the stages of the path for beings of small capacity. So this first line is referring to that. Second, in the middle you stop the misconception of self. This is referring to the more subtle understanding of the truth of suffering and origin. Here, putting an end to the misconception of self is putting an end to the misunderstanding of the mode of existence. So understanding emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Understanding the lack of true establishment of a thing, lack of true establishment of cause, and lack of true establishment of effect. So here, this in the middle, you stop the misconception of self is similar to that, and the teachings that are shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and these are the pathways which lead to liberation. And then it says, finally, you put an end to all bad views. Even though one is able to get rid of the afflictive obstructions by engaging in the pathways shared in common, or pathways for beings of medium capacity, the imprints of those afflictions, which are the obstructions to omniscience, cannot be removed by those practices alone, those practices being the higher trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom. But specifically in here, we were speaking of signlessness, wishlessness, and emptiness. So those practices, one cannot get rid of the obstructions to omniscience, and one is hindered because it's not the same level of knowing. We find in the story of Mugiputra and Buddha, and that example that's given to show the different levels of knowing or clairvoyance that one has. Mugiputra being a Hinayana foe destroyer, having abandoned the afflictive obstructions, but not the imprints of those obstructions, and Buddha being a fully ripened Buddha, having abandoned also the imprints of those obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience. And that story which shows the Buddha's ability to know something further than Mugiputra was able to know because of the Mugiputra's still having those obstructions to omniscience. So in order to get rid of that, one has to engage in the pathways that are for beings of great capacity, engage in the union of a wisdom realizing emptiness and bodhicitta. So by having the wisdom and bodhicitta together, then one is able to achieve complete Buddhahood. So this is referring to the pathways for beings of great capacity. And it says, one who knows this is an adept. So one who knows these stages proper is an adept. So these are the stages according to Aryadeva's 400 verses.
Lubin kiba makui sena lubin pao makui je jansi tere gui la cui jin to domba jinsu tangji ne sen la ngeba nye je de teni cui nu gongba zi she sung de sa 다 러면 바위 가서 생제라지 요새와 저만은 로보스 가서 이지 쉐바데 네 요새와 그 저마레디오 말이스 될 최단지야 누바요 아래 디바 단지 다 누바요 아래 생데 이징 너무다 버리 세 남레스 몸시에도 어떤 아지 생들 때네 천자와 집 중은 주고 링기 주고 주주 세 주주잖아 레가버들 최서비잖아 서버리는 마버리는
Oh, okay.
어때 그걸 최진도스 다 집 중은 주고 천자원도 생주 주주 당워서 말이야 아는 링기 주고 집이 주 어떤 아지 손대 나쁜 못해
Lesson.
담보 저대 그걸 최진도 담보 인수 당진 다진바 최진서 점바 시스퍼바전도 진짜로 what 소송 거래서 때네 생랑에 바니지들 what 생고 조선한 생랑에 제적으로 집이 중주는 게 제적으로 내도 동문 주는 게 제적으로 집이 주는 게 제적으로 근데 주바르 집이 대바든 대바상아도 집이 대바 what는 주도 공고를 송대자 말이야 뭔가 제송대사.
So then the learned master Marchetta said, Lopum Pao, I believe Ashvagosha, I think, it is like dyeing cloth that is free of stains. First they develop goodness in the students' minds through discussions on generosity and the like, and then they have them meditate on the teaching. So here, the mind is in the nature of clear light and unsullied or unstained. So its nature is not the stains. We've made all of these examples of the mind being like a wish-fulfilling jewel and being like gold, that its nature isn't sullied. And so the mind has the ability to change. If we take a white cloth and we dip it in red dye, it comes out red. If we take it and then dip it in yellow dye, it would come out yellow. So it's changeable. Likewise, our mind is changeable. We're able to change our mind in stages because its nature is not stained. So first it says there's discussions on generosity and the like. So the 6 perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. And then the student has this affinity and hears about these things and then goes and meditates on the teaching. Meditating on the teaching is referring to those stages of the path, which are the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. And the reason that all of these are possible is because the student's mind can develop goodness because it is in the nature of clear light and isn't stained. The defilements and stains can be removed because they are not of its nature, just like the cloth can be dyed. The mind is not, and the cloth is not in the nature yeah, everyone gets it. So the mind is changeable. It says that develop goodness in the student's mind. Developing, it can change. It can be transformed. Transformed is probably the more of the word. So the mind can be transformed in the same way that one can dye a cloth. It can change. So here it says meditate on the teaching. Familiarize oneself again and again with the teachings shared in common with beings of small, medium, and great capacity.
What the button daughter, what the Lama by long conscience, Jibby Chung landing, Jibby Chibi land to go Korean. Probably but Nazi Google is so shas, button daughter.
It says, citing this passage, the great master Chandrakirti also held that the path has a definite order. So here is just another great Nalanda master, Chandrakirti, Master Chandrakirti, who also says there's a definite order.
What that Jabusonaj Chibi Jusen Delani, Juji Gubatan, what to Nengachubre, what that Katula, what to Rose Lu, touch on with Kissy, and then I saw the Luna, Yacham Luna, son of the Nengachu, they are.
Since the order we use guiding others along the path clearly is very crucial for their practice to reach firm certainty about this method. So here, there's a great reason or purpose for these students being led in 3 stages. So we made 14 points about this. one thing I forgot from before, I'm going to say now. So there are 14 points that are made to show the purpose of leading them through these stages. So familiarize yourself with these stages. Look at these cassettes that we have with the explanations on these stages. Look at the Dalai Lama's teachings over and over again on the explanations of these stages. And then one can ripen one's mind by doing so. And going back to this quote, it says, meditate on the teaching. Meditate on the teaching from the stages of the path for beings of small capacity to the stages of the path for beings of medium capacity to the stages of the path for the causal perfection vehicle and then the resultant tantric vehicle. So Rinpoche just gave that order and I just didn't state it before. So here, these are very important points that are made and we should familiarize ourselves with all the resources that we have again and again and again about the purpose of these three stages. So you have now in English the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. You have now in Chinese the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. So you have in your hands a jewel. So yeah. So if you can use or rely on this very well, it has its great importance within it. There are 18 volumes of texts of Lama Tsongkhapa, and this being one of them. They're all very important. Butapo, very strong or important. Strong and important together. Solid information. If we can look into the Lamrim, Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, we can see its all-encompassed nature, it's how solid it is. Oh, no poa. So it seems as though for Tibetans there are more Tibetans that don't understand the Lamrim Chenmo than do understand the Lamrim Chenmo. And at the time of death, this is what will help, not a poa, not a transmission of consciousness. So there's a benefit for all levels of practitioners in the Great Treatise on the Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. Great scholars can appreciate it, medium scholars can appreciate it, beginners can appreciate it. It's useful for everyone, this text. But I don't understand it very well, but this is what I think. This is what I think. Thank you very much. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi Deno, Jupu Jupu Yanja Perona. Then Chu Se Pena, then Parshin Shiton Yanja Chironang, the Dunda, the Shapi.